Hello, possums. Dr. Lena here from the freezing southern hemisphere. As you can see from my outfit, midwinter here. Okay, so we've just been treated to yet more installments in the Jerry Springer presidency as it unfolds. So the Yeti has done a runner and he's dumped Kash Patel and Pam Bondi in it. I wouldn't even say under a bus. I think it's more like throwing them under a combine harvester. He stepped back, and Caroline Levitt, bride of Chucky, has no problem going forth just to announce it's nothing to do with the White House, actually. Now she comes to think about it. No, what scandal? Mm. So we have Moses Mike Johnson shutting down the People's House in order to avoid an awkward series of questions with Ghislaine Maxwell. Hmm. Wonder what she'd actually say. How much is she going to dob people in? Hmm. It'll come to pass. But look, I think the most pressing issue is because you can feel that the Yeti's failing and flailing. You had Vance, not just Vance, meeting Murdoch, Peter Thiel meeting Murdoch. Now I need a coffee for this. Just hold on a minute while I have a gulp. Okay. So we know that Peter Thiel has been, what would you say, pumping JD Vance as a protege for many years. And did he pay for him to go to law school? Can't say for sure. Entertainment purposes only YouTube, but I think he did. He certainly supported him in other ways. Okay, so now the thing is this. JD as VP um, steps in. Should anything untoward happen to the Yeti, he steps in. But just like Kamala had to, it then goes to some bloodletting in the party whether he would be their actual presidential person. So we have to look at all that. And then back to Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel has fingers in many pies, but one of the main ones I didn't even realize till this morning, so let me share in case you've missed it. Google Peter Thiel and James Murdoch, second son of Monster, have got a thing called the Maven Project. And it's about AI and facial recognition and stuff to get contracts with the Pentagon. So already they are making big moves together. Now, Rupert Murdoch, I'm here to report, might never die. He's one of those. At 96, he's still ruling the roost. And I don't shy away. He is Australian. He took out citizenship in the US many years ago so he could ruin another society. And so he went and launched Fox. But for now, I think we've got to take a close look at Peter Thiel and the JD Vance connection. What have they got planned? The Maven Project. Who makes up these names? Let's dive in here. James Murdoch, um, because we follow the Murdochs in Australia because they're actual real people to us. You know, I know people who went to school with Lachlan and James and Elizabeth. So they're real people, not just doyens of industry. And James was actually more reasonable. He actually believes in climate change happening and other normal things that an educated person would. The problem child was always Lachlan, who wanted to be more fascist and disgusting than his father to prove a point. So I was keeping my eye on Lachlan. And now James who seemed as if he was semi all right, has turned up with these doyens. So let's look at that. Because this is the sort of power group that's going to decide. It's naive to think it would actually be voters. You know, because until the whole system changes. Anyway, shut up, Lena. Focus, get on with it. Okay. Will Murdoch and Thiel combine? Let's have a look. Mhm. Right, this is a work in progress. Look at this. Okay, now, if you were Peter Thiel and you'd invested this time, money, energy, connections into your guy Vance, you'd want to see your ship coming in. So Thiel's lobbying heavily for Vance. Excuse me. The vibe I've got in the last couple of days over this meeting with Vance is that for Murdoch, Senior, Rupert Murdoch, this was more an audition. Will I let this guy have the big chair or not? So, waiting on return, I think, with what we know now about James, so I think there's Peter Thiel and James waiting for this return. Legally, now, I'd like to think this was justice being upheld, which it normally is, but it's like, how can they get away with a deep perversion of justice? That would be something major like continuing to stack the Supreme Court or cancelling the midterms because of some mythical event. I think this is a very negative version of legal. Now, these two cards are kind of similar. Three of Pentacles, Six of Pentacles. This is people working together, and conventionally it can also be interpreted as dark money, but they're definitely scheming. And this is basically how to overwhelm lesser mortals, like normal people with normal jobs. It's a bit of that energy, but there's a softening touch, which is interesting. Temperance, gorgeous, a bit of balance. So I'm thinking they might go for something not quite as brutish and crude as the Yeti. Could that be possible? We will see. So it's a work in progress. Work in progress. So let me have another gulp. Now, speaking of legal, there's a new Civil Liberties Alliance, and they are running a court case about the illegality of the tariffs. Glad someone is. And they're basically questioning the legal basis of whatever emergency thing the Yeti rolled out from in his pajama pants, like, so that's really important. And I want to take a look at that right now because the legal system is struggling under the strain of all this rampant behaviour. So let's have a look. A legal complaint against the tariffs. A legal complaint against the tariff. Congress, power of the purse, they are supposed to sign off on tariffs. It never happened. And again, these things just keep happening, and people are so shell-shocked, exhausted, traumatized by this regime that say about this court case. Because the tech bros, everyone must be thinking, what's happening with the tariffs? Let's see. Big stick. Ooh. Now, this is my take on this. Could be wishful thinking. Now, Ace of Wands, this is this group, this new civil liberties group, coming out hard and strong. I'm pleased to see it. Queen of Pentacles, I think this is talking about the tariffs themselves. This figure is guarding the money, and we all know that apart from half a dozen people in Trump's orbit, everyone thinks they're a stupid idea at best, a dangerous idea, an absolutely catastrophic idea. It's only where you sit on the spectrum of disaster in terms of the tariffs. So this is someone guarding the money from the tariffs in this confused state. This court case, as it goes through the system, and of course it's going to take a long while, but it'll be still processing, things will be revealed with this Sun card. Here's what I think is very interesting. The Emperor on the stone throne, this is, you could say, the Yeti on the gold toilet. But it's like his time is done. They're going to blame him for the tariffs, I think, and move out from under. It's like the tariffs have done so much damage already, and they haven't even started. We're still a week out. And Taco being what he is, he'll extend guidelines and say we're having very meaningful talks and things, which is not happening. There is not a single trade deal. He was talking in the last few days, or someone was talking about a trade deal with Japan. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what the Japanese are saying about this. So I had a look. It's almost laughable. In fact, it is laughable. Japan, in order for Japan to do a big trade deal, it has to be passed by their whole parliament. They have a functioning parliament, unlike the Congress in the United States, which is a rubber stamp for the imbecile. And it's nowhere near that. The conversation went along the lines that we'll allow more inputs of American cars into Japan, knowing no one will buy them. It's a physically much smaller country. No one wants gas guzzling cars. So they're going, okay, send over a few thousand more Fords. Okay, all right. So it's a non-deal too. Yeah. But I think as we move forward, I'm quite heartened to see this in this context. I don't think the tariffs are going to happen in the way that it was described to us. There might be a few here and there, but no, I think a more interesting development with the tariffs and other things, and I think of more concern, immediate concern to people living in the United States, is the price gouging and the preemptive price hikes that are going on before a tariff has even been laid down, you know. And I think it is impacting on how people look at their money and spending patterns, you know. So let's have a look here. Let's see how MAGA's going. Now they've worked out that a tariff might not be a good thing. A lot of them initially seemed to turn away with Epstein. I'm a bit cranky. Let me digress here, viewers, with the Wall Street Journal for even bothering to put out the birthday letter, right? Now, And my hesitation was borne out because now apparently a lot of MAGAs that sort of went, oh, this is terrible, have come back into the fold to say, yeah, you know what? The deep state, they're doing it, and they've come back. You can't underestimate stupid, can you? They're so proud of their ignorance and they're going to fight to the death. So, I don't know if that was the smartest move ever. Anyway, it's happened and it will continue to happen. To me, having read that letter, it didn't sound like Trump. I hate to say that. Now, let me be clear here. I'm absolutely sure, and they have more lawyers than any other organization in the world, I'm sure. It would have come from Trump's office to Jeffrey Epstein's office. I don't doubt that. And it was probably written by who was Trump's right-hand gal for decades, Rona Gaff or something, Rona somebody. It's the sort of thing she would do for him and go, just sign this, Donald. It's Jeffrey's birthday next week. Like, I think it's something like that. It doesn't matter, it's out there now. Now, in the good news column, we have 2,000 National Guards being brought back. But also, this is mad. Why is it in the good news column? But I'm kind of amused. The QAnon shaman has turned on the Yeti. Ooh, now he's in trouble. And Stuart Rhodes, or real name Elmer Rhodes. Now, how can we forget Stuart Rhodes? This is a guy who shot out his own eye while demonstrating gun safety. So he hasn't completely slagged off the Yeti, as we would say in Australia or the UK. But he's questioning him, and considering he got a pardon and he got 16 years knocked off his sentence, you'd think he'd keep his mouth shut. But these people can't help themselves. If there's a chance to be vulgar, vile, and disloyal, they're there, queuing up. So Stuart Rhodes is also turned. Now, where was I? Um, okay, let's have a look here. Pharmaceuticals. Now, part of, I think, what's happening with the Yeti walking off the cliff as he is at the moment, what do you think, viewers? What I actually think is, I don't want him to go just yet because some of this chaos and pain, particularly around medicine and other things, needs to be felt by the base. Sorry about the millions of you who are caught up in it, to actually move the dial. So pharmaceuticals, he's very vulnerable on that because I think people actually notice when they're diabetic and can't afford their insulin, when they're asthmatic and can't afford their inhalers. I think they notice. It's terrible. It's absolutely scandalous. And I would like to see not just MAGA, but mainstream America rise up about this. Excuse me again, I've got a scratchy throat. He got half the story. Remember, he started saying, why do we as Americans pay more than every other country for pharmaceuticals? Well, he probably didn't say pharmaceuticals because it's got too many syllables, but for medicine. Well, it's a very good question, Donald. One that should be more widely asked. So, will the pharmaceutical stuff move the dial for the American electorate? Let's have a look. It's shocking. Absolutely shocking. Okay, let's have a look. Pharmaceuticals, will they play a role just in themselves? More legal cases about this. Oh, look, you can't save these people from themselves, is all I can say, really. Okay, I think it will go as far as some sort of major mainstream legal action about the cost of pharmaceuticals in the USA. It's probably 40 or 50 years too late, but got to start somewhere, right? So I think that could actually happen. People will not be impressed with their hospital closures and the unaffordability going forward. Now, this card turned up just before guarding the money, right? And I think this represents women in the sense of women up at night with the sick child and women tending to see to more medical issues than most men do. And that's actually a statistical reality, which is why married men live longer than unmarried men because the wives and stuff are making sure they go and have the prostate check and have the heart done. And so I'm not making that up. I am a health sociologist. It'll be women most concerned with this. But, 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 Page of Cups, surprise news in the form of the fish in the cup, but it's also, um, as Hogarth would say, stinky fish. It's like uh, they'll buy some story that it's Australia's fault or Japan's fault or someone else's fault that Americans pay more than anyone else. And this is part of the bigger quandary over the American system, which I will say again is not a health system at all, but an insurance industry, nothing to do with health. So it's like that disconnect in reality. So I think there'll be mixed messaging and it'll be someone else's fault. Let's have a quick look at RFK while we're on the health issue. How long's he got? Oh, I'll use the circus cards for RFK. Let's have a look. Strange guy. Strange guy. Oh, I have some more announcements. RFK. How long's he going to be in the saddle? RFK. RFK. It's like a competition for the worst people for the biggest jobs, isn't it? Like, hmm. All right. Well, America will get to decide this, I think, as opposed to the Peter Thiels and everybody. This is interesting. He'll have to swallow the fire here because I think we're going to see a dramatic increase in preventable illnesses. So, and this is measles with babies and stuff, and TB is making a comeback, and we are going to see polio come back. He's going to have to swallow his own words. He's a burden for the party. Wheel of Fortune, this is actually karmic, and I think it's what I was just saying about the evil health system. It's time for that wheel to turn. And if you ask most people, they say, oh, you can never change it. You know, Bernie tried, you can never change it. Well, you can never change it until you change it. And so that can happen sometimes. And the country is at the crossroads. More of the same or a completely different path. Hmm. This might be two ways of doing things, red state, blue state. could see the blue states actually, they're already doing a better job, but doing a much better job, and the red states where people will actually suffer the consequences of being GOP voters. With this, look at that. It's because the awful irony of the American system is that in tax terms, Americans pay more than any other country to not have healthcare. You guys pay more per capita than we do in Australia, than Canada does, Italians, French, Germans, Dutch, than anyone else. It's not working, is it? Okay, so we spoke last video a bit about Colbert. He'll be absolutely fine because the era of late night television is almost passé. There'll be a new platform, new forum. He's already threatening Jimmy Kimmel, but they'll be making plans. So don't worry too much about that. Symbolically, it's atrocious. It's a fascist maneuver of the First Order, absolutely appalling. But they will still be around. They will still be around. Now, in terms of what I want to say, I'm putting a link up from Brian Eno, if you remember him. He's a billionaire. And I may have put this up 6 months ago or something, but I think it's very timely. And he's talking about the selfishness of the uber rich. It's actually fascinating to get a little glimpse into that world. So I'm going to put that up as a pinned comment and let me know what you think about that. But remember Warren Buffett's famous statement, which would be 30 years ago now or something, why am I paying more tax than my secretary? Exactly. Now, a big economic head honcho in the UK has come forward and saying, we have to tax the uber wealthy, and the political class hasn't got the guts to do it. It has to be driven by the people. Interesting. So I think we're starting to see that movement take hold too. So let's go. All right, guys. Well, I'll see you soon. And in the meantime, big love and take care. Ciao, ciao.